Jordan's new book, Do What You Said You Would Do, is out November 23rd. And Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you, Maria. And the book's available for pre-order now on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Thanks for having me on.
All right, good for you. I want to talk about this questioning of the AG later today and that school board memo that he put out, pretty much sicking the FBI on parents who had the nerve to demand that they wanted to know more about what their kids are being taught and questioned why they were being taught that they were systemically racist. What are you planning to ask the AG?
How dare parents say that they don't want some racist, anti-America, hate America curriculum taught to their kids? And I think the key thing here, Maria, is look at the turnaround. September 29th, the National School Board Association sends a letter to the President of the United States asking specifically for the federal government, for the FBI to get involved in local school board matters. 5 days later, the Attorney General of the United States issues a memo that does exactly what this political organization asked for. I mean, if that's not going to have a chilling impact on speech, I don't know what is. So this is frightening. And frankly, I think you're going to see a lot of questions from Republicans to the Attorney General on this subject.
What about conflicts or potential conflicts around this AG? Here's a highlight headline from the Washington Examiner editorial. Merrick Garland should really resign, but the least he can do is recuse himself. And this op-ed goes into how his son-in-law founded and produced a company that produces and administers surveys for entire school districts, which pretty much push this critical race theory. So should the AG be sicking the FBI on parents when, in fact, it's his son-in-law that's being paid for these surveys around critical race theory in schools?
Of course not. And this is, I think this curriculum's called Panorama. This company, excuse me, is called Panorama. And it's his son-in-law has an interest in this. So there's that issue, but there's just also the fundamental issue. What is the FBI doing involving themselves in local school board matter? This is a local law enforcement issue. If there's a concern, if there's some kind of threat at the local school board meeting, that's something local law enforcement can handle, frankly, has been handling. But instead, we have a memo. And the memo specifically talks about an open line of communication, develop an open line of communication for threat reporting on parents. So a snitch line on parents is what this memo is about. Again, if that isn't something that's going to, I think, chill First Amendment free speech of parents, moms and dads showing up at school boards meetings, demanding to know what's going on with their kids' curriculum and their kids' education, I don't know what is. So I think this is a critical issue, and maybe this is something I think has become a catalyst for more people to get involved and push back against this socialist movement we see from the Biden administration.
Well, Congressman, I mean, our viewers are very concerned. It goes beyond socialism. I mean, it hits on totalitarianism. You're talking about vaccine mandates. You're talking about surveillance of our bank accounts. And, of course, as you mentioned, censorship of free speech. What are you going to do about it? You're the ranking member of Judiciary. Can you do anything about this right now?
We can keep doing what you're doing. You do a great job talking about how bad this is. You're right. They want to spy on your bank account, any transaction over $600. Every liberty we enjoy under the First Amendment has been assaulted over the last year. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble, your right to petition your government, freedom of the press, and, of course, freedom of speech, which is what we've been talking about. So we have to continue to talk about it. And then when we win back the House next year, which I think is going to happen, after all, Joe Biden's approval rating is now down to 37%. I think Republicans are going to win back the House. Then we can do the investigations that, frankly, need to happen. But in the end, to really hold people accountable, it's the Justice Department. And we now know the Justice Department, controlled by Joe Biden, the Democrats, Merrick Garland as Attorney General, they're not inclined to get rid of this double standard and go after the things that we think they need to do. In fact, they're doing the wrong thing, as evidenced by this memo about parents at school board meetings.
Well, I mean, I think you hit on something that's so important, something that has been so disappointing for the public, and that is the politicization of our important institutions. We know that the FBI was politicized, going along with that Hillary Clinton made-up lie about Russia collusion. The CIA also politicized. We know the IRS was politicized under President Obama. Now they want to give the IRS more power so they could weaponize that. And now we're talking about the potential of politicization at the DOJ. Really?
Yeah, no, it's scary. Jefferson, who one of his statues was just recently torn down, I believe, in New York City. Jefferson once said, "Tyranny is when the people fear the government." Unfortunately, I think we're there. I have talked to constituents that I get the privilege of representing in the 4th District of Ohio. I've talked to people all over the country, and they're afraid. They're afraid of their own government. And as you rightly point out, specifically the Justice Department, who did what they did with the whole Trump-Russia investigation. We just learned from Mr. Horowitz that the FISA application process, there were all kinds of errors and omissions in 29 randomly selected FISA applications. So, and now on top of all that, we have what? We have the Justice Department looking at parents, targeting parents at school board meetings. So that fear, I think, is justified, and it's a sad state for our country. But I think the American people aren't going to cower. They're not going to hide. They're going to push back. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that with the vaccine mandate. I mean, the Chicago Police Union, you're seeing it with Delta Airlines, you're seeing it with Dan Bongino, you're seeing all kinds of people. You're seeing with you push back on these attacks on freedom. And you're frankly seeing it with President Trump, who's launching this new social media site where the First Amendment and free speech will be allowed. I mean, imagine that, following the Constitution, and big tech won't be able to censor us. So the American people are going to push back, and that's a great sign.
Yeah, President Trump said that this new social media, Truth Social, will be rolled out in the first quarter of 2022. We have a statement. Trump said, quote, "I created Truth Social to stand up to the tyranny of big tech. We live in a world where the Taliban has a huge presence on Twitter, yet your favorite American president has been silenced. This is unacceptable." Congressman, what about policy? Should the GOP take control of the majority in Congress next November, would there be a movement to actually put new regulatory frameworks in place to put some guardrails around the social media sector?
Yes, we have legislation that gets rid of their liability, the liability protection they have, the so-called Section 230. We introduced that last Congress. We're going to have that again this Congress. But if we get in control, that's something we could actually pass. Now, I don't think Joe Biden will sign it because he sort of likes the fact that big tech censors people like you, people like me, people like President Trump. Democrats kind of like that fact. In fact, they applaud it, and they're pushing for more of it. So that's the first thing we can do. Then we also have to expedite the process for these antitrust suits to move through court so we can get a decision from the Supreme Court. Those are the things we're working on as Republicans on the Judiciary Committee. But it'll be tough to get them all passed until we get President Trump back in the White House and Republicans have full control of the United States Congress.
Real quick, Congressman, in terms of where we are on this package, Joe Biden yesterday said it's not going to cost anything. It's free, that we shouldn't even be talking about the numbers right now because it's free and paid for. Your thoughts on where this goes, and why does he get away with saying that it's free?
Because the mainstream press lets him. Yeah, $5 trillion spending, it's free. And oh, by the way, the border's secure, Mr. Mayorkas told. I mean, these guys just with a straight face say things that are just blatantly false. We all know this is a bad deal. I mean, think about the Democrats' economic package. Lock down the economy, spend like crazy, pay people not to work. And then for everyone who has been working, oh, we're going to spend $5 trillion and raise your taxes. Such a deal. So Americans get it. I mean, again, there's a reason Joe Biden's at 37% because he has not done one thing right. This is the worst administration we have had certainly in our lifetimes, maybe in the history of the country, because I've never seen anything go so wrong so fast. But they can keep saying what they want. The American people see it for what it is.
Yep.